Arbuckle's plea for another chance. The Literary Digest, January 13th, 1923. Will Hayes's Christmas pardon of Fatty Arbuckle is a brazen insult to the American people, or a Christian appeal to the people's conscience to give the fallen star a chance to rehabilitate himself in the popular esteem, according as the comedian's case and its effects are viewed in the public eye. In the opinion of the Indiana News Sentinel, Fort Wayne, neither Will Hayes nor anyone else is going to salvage the stinking lot of corruption sewed up in the suppressed Arbuckle films. But the little czar of moviedom insists on his pardon as a moral obligation, and Arbuckle himself quotes these words of Christ: "As ye judge, so shall ye be judged." However, a storm of protest broke over the country on Mr. Hayes' announcement that Arbuckle was to have another chance on the screen. Hard words are used, and Joseph M. Schenck, the producer who announces he will employ the erstwhile favorite, declares, "It is not Christian-like of ministers to condemn Arbuckle before he has been heard." On the other hand, the unfortunate breakdown from the effects of narcotics of another film favorite so complicates the case as to revive criticism of Hollywood as the graveyard of virtue, that it is asked whether Mr. Hayes is employed by the movie industry at $150,000 a year to act as a broom or a whitewash brush. The story of Arbuckle's downfall needs no repetition here. A night given over to orgy in a San Francisco hotel, the death of an actress, 3 trials before acquittal on a murder charge, an acquittal, however, which is said not to have removed the odor of scandal, and the rotund idol who had tickled millions with his antics was found to have feet of clay. He was banished from the screen kingdom by Mr. Hayes, his pictures were withdrawn, and his contract with his producer was cancelled. Now he is to come back, if he can, and public opinion is to decide. In announcing that Arbuckle was to have another opportunity, Mr. Will Hayes says, "Every man in the right and at the proper time is entitled to his chance to make good. It is apparent that Roscoe Arbuckle's conduct since his trouble merits that chance. So far as I am concerned, there will be no suggestion now that he should not have his opportunity to go back to work in his profession. In our efforts to develop complete cooperation and confidence within the industry, I hope we can start the new year with no yesterdays. Live and let live is not enough. We will try to live and help live." The comedian accepted the proffered opportunity, saying, "I am very grateful to all those who are helping me, and I will prove myself worthy of their faith in me." But a wrathful din which grew as announcement of the pardon gained in publicity immediately broke about his ears. The Los Angeles District Federation of Women's Clubs opened the chorus of indignation by reaffirming its opposition to Arbuckle's return to the screen, and saying that the testimony at his trial was of such a character as to bar him forever from appearing before a decent, self-respecting public. The opposition spread rapidly throughout the country, and was recorded in volumes of press dispatches. The mayors of several leading cities are reported to have voiced their disapproval of the whilom favorite's return to the movies, and strong protests have been raised by clergy and church organizations, by women's clubs, by associations of motion picture owners, and by such representative bodies as the National Education Association, the YMCA, and the National Catholic Welfare Council. Motion picture exhibitors are also in the opposition bandwagon. Those of eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware are reported in press dispatches to have officially banned the showing of Arbuckle films in their theaters until the public wants him back. Telegrams coming to the national offices of the Motion Picture Owners of America indicate, says Sidney S. Cohen, president, a general opposition to the return of Arbuckle to the screen. As the public alone constitute the judges of what should or should not appear on the screen, the American people will determine whether or not they want Arbuckle films. No act of any official can make up the public mind in this matter. Turning to the voluminous editorial comment on the consequences of Arbuckle's escapade, it appears to be preponderatingly against his return from exile. "Sorry as we may be for the man's downfall," says the Grand Rapids Press, "Arbuckle's appearance on the silver sheet cannot fail to recall to practically every man, woman, and child in every theater which leases his films the details of the Arbuckle party in San Francisco and the salacious evidence at the trial. The righteous gentlemen behind the pardon talk as though the only question were that of being good to Arbuckle," comments the Adrian Daily Telegram. "How about the feelings and the morals of the millions before whom they proposed to thrust Arbuckle's picture and personality? As to Mr. Will Hayes, we would only add that now we know he was intended to be a whitewash brush, and he is. It may be true that Arbuckle has behaved himself since his acquittal," says the Pittsburgh Gazette-Times, "but that does not operate to prevent recalling to mind the incidents which led to his prosecution. To portray him on the screen is to place him in the light of having been guilty of a mere indiscretion which should be overlooked in the interest of art. The effect could not be otherwise than bad, and Mr. Hayes's attitude does not improve the situation." Noting that the comedian was tried on a charge of homicide, not for the irregular conduct which preceded a woman's death, the chief thing that makes him unfit as an entertainer for children or adolescents, the St. Paul Pioneer Press agrees that there is no question of Arbuckle's right to live a respectable life. But it does not follow that he has any right to recover such special advantages at the expense of jeopardizing the morals and mental integrity of millions of impressionable young persons. His prosperity is as nothing compared with the welfare of a generation. And if his moral welfare is a matter for our consideration, the Chicago Evening Post would be inclined to recommend another kind of job. The fact that it might be less to his liking and considerably less lucrative would be good for his soul. However, Arbuckle is not without his defenders. "The sum total of Christian philosophy glows in Mr. Hayes's happy phrase, 'live and help live,'" remarks the Denver Times. "The phrase breathes the very spirit of the Golden Rule, which would have men do unto others as they would they should do unto them. And there is more than the future of Arbuckle at stake. If the corpulent comedian shall reveal, after all, beneath the boisterousness and uncouthness of his slapstick art, those qualities on which Mr. Hayes is depending, he will be aiding the moving picture industry as a whole and improving its ethical tone. It is one thing to excuse his evil conduct," says the Baltimore Sun. "It is another to say that because of his misdeeds he shall not be allowed to earn a living in the only trade in which he is skilled. If we assume to carry our judgments to such an extent as this, we shall certainly, if not in this case then in others, be responsible for much injustice and injury. It is plainly a moral question," thinks the Springfield Union. "Also a question of the attitude of sinners toward the sinner. We are, or assume to be, a Christian people, and this is a question of Christian morality, and there must be a Christian answer. What is it? It is by no means a new question, and it was answered of old. Then came Peter to him, and said, 'Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. As ye judge, so shall ye be judged,' recites Arbuckle in an appeal, in which he says that the third jury not only acquitted him, but found, the jurors stated, that there was not the slightest proof adduced to connect him in any way with the commission of a crime. So he declares, 'But even supposing that I had not been able to establish my innocence, but that I were conscientiously endeavoring through an orderly life to atone for mistakes, would I not be entitled to an appeal for forgiveness according to the Scriptures, the letter of which so many in the pulpit seem to observe, and the spirit of which some in the pulpit seem to ignore? It is not difficult to visualize at this time of year, which commemorates the birth of Christ, what might have happened if some of those who heartlessly denounce me had been present when the Savior forgave the penitent thief on the cross in words that have influenced the human race more than any other words ever uttered. Would not some of these persons have denounced Christ and stoned him for what he said?